the only way societies are judged, or corporations are judged to be successful, is if they grow at 2 to 3 to 10% every year. Well, if you grow at 10% every year, that's a growth rate that we physicists, mathematicians know is exponential. And that cannot be sustained no matter what we do. But how do you replace it? What is an economic system that could function well, or a political system that could function well without continuous growth? We haven't yet found one. And I was challenging us to start thinking about alternatives to an economic system and a political system that require continual growth, growth, growth.
Yes, lady.
I'm Vivian Talisayon, UP College of Education. They say that behind a great mind is a great teacher. Was there a great teacher that influenced your physics career? And my second question is, how do you teach physics so that there will be more David Grosses?
I don't know you. You have two questions. The first question, did I have a specific teacher? Yes, but not till late in my career. So not in elementary or high school. The teachers who had the biggest influence on me were in graduate school. Later on, where I had two of my instructors, my professors at UC Berkeley when I was a graduate student, went on to win the Nobel Prize as well. These were really great physicists, and I learned from them, as I said, by example. Their courses were partly discussions of the research that they were involved in, and I could see how they thought about. So from those had a big influence on me, but not early on. Instead, I had great teachers that I never met in person, but I read their words in books. So, you know, again, young people today are incredibly lucky, because not only do you have books to read, and there are many wonderful books written by wonderful scientists and wonderful minds that you can read, but you have the internet. So you actually have available to you, at the touch of your fingers, lectures and talks, as well as written words from all of the great minds of today and yesterday. Those of you who are interested in physics should turn to my institute, kitp.ucsb.edu. On our website, we have something like 30,000 hours of lectures in physics. Everything we do at the Institute is recorded in real time and available. Public lectures, which are wonderful introductions to various areas in science, as well as very specialized lectures. All of this is available on the web. So you don't have to have teachers in the sense of a one-to-one teacher standing in front of you. You have books, which is what I had when I was young, and now you have the internet. I wish I had had the internet when I was young.
Gentleman here.
I'm Debbie Esguerra from the National Institute of Physics. Your PhD supervisor, Geoff Chu, was one of the main proponents of the bootstrap and S-matrix models, and the work for which you won the Nobel Prize was a complete break from that general direction. So when did you decide to break away? And how difficult was it to follow a completely different direction from what your PhD supervisor was doing?
Right. So this is an interesting story. When I was a graduate student, I was interested in the hardest problem. I always like the hard problems because, well, they're the most interesting and challenging. And the hardest problem was the nuclear force. And people were so confused that they decided that the general framework we had for doing fundamental physics, which is quantum field theory, was wrong because they couldn't make any progress. And my advisor was the leader of what was a popular movement in the field of saying it's totally wrong and suggesting a totally revolutionary new way of looking at elementary particle physics. And, well, you know, as a young man, that seemed very exciting. A revolution. Let's go into a revolution. So I became his student and I worked in this field. But after, you know, my thesis was almost finished, I began to realize that the content to this revolution was rather slim and not very interesting. You couldn't do much with these new ideas. So even before I got my PhD, I started learning about the more old-fashioned way of doing things. And then I went off to the other side of the United States, so I was far away from him. But you know, in the United States, and especially my advisor, are very tolerant of rebellion. This is part of our tradition which serves us very well. So, you know, if my graduate student comes to me and says, I think your ideas are all wrong. In some countries, the graduate students he might be thrown out. But in America, we don't do that. We respect. In fact, we value, we encourage rebellion. So I never thought twice about, in fact, working in a totally different direction than my advisor. And I don't think he ever thought once about criticizing me for that, even though he had his own direction. So, and in fact, our work led to an understanding based on quantum field theory, detailed theory, which works. And even my advisor, although it took him many, many years, accepted that.
Lady there at the back, please, Jim. Yeah, please.
Hello, it's me again. Actually, my question was a follow-up of the one read by Dr. Garcia. Now, you said earlier that, you know, after doing what you did in the 1970s, you were actually expecting to win the Nobel Prize every year, and then you get disappointed every October. But let's do a flashback. You see, when you were 13 years old, you first read your favorite popular science book. Did it ever occur to you that, you know, one day you're going to get a Nobel Prize? Did you ever dream?
No. I probably didn't know what a Nobel Prize was. Now look, you don't go into science to win prizes. You know, you might win you really don't. It's a mistake. You don't actually even go into science, in a sense, to make the great, maybe you do, but this is not the reason to go into science, to make a great discovery or get the recognition for that. That can happen, cannot happen. You go in for the love of the pursuit, of the work, of the research, which is what you're going to do 99.9% of the time. Maybe, if you're lucky, 1% of the time will be discoveries that are of lasting value and recognition. But most of the time, you're working away. So you have to love the working, the actual research, the doing of science, the working in the laboratory, the working with equations. I love doing that. I love problems. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a friend who used to trade integrals. I would give him integrals to calculate. He would give me integrals. I love doing integrals. It was fun. So if you have to enjoy what you're doing. That's nice, we're all taught to be competitive. So it's nice to get recognition and win prizes and all that, but people who are only motivated by big discoveries usually fail completely. And people who only care about recognition and prizes live a bitter and miserable life.
Any question from that side? This gentleman side.
I'm Romulo Virola of the National Statistical Coordination Board. I'm not as brilliant as these young people who have been asking questions this afternoon, and my question will be quite naive. It will literally hew to the subject of this dialogue, which is towards culture of peace. I'm sure that these discussions are promoting peace. It's an instrument for promoting peace, but I would like to think that the peace and order problems of the Philippines, for instance, are not caused by people in this audience. It is caused by people outside of this hall. And so, in spite of what you said about your encouraging rebellion, my question is, how can the statistical community promote peace? And in particular, what can the Nobel Laureates do as a group to promote world peace?
Well, there's so many ways of promoting peace. It's hard to choose, which are the most important. Dispelling ignorance, I think, is one of the most important, because so much of bigotry and prejudice and nationalism and hatreds are based on just ignorance. What can the Nobel laureates do? Well, Alfred Nobel was a brilliant philanthropist. He invented sort of this international prize that has so much attention. And he combined prizes in science, which are very objective and clear-cut, with a prize in peace, which was really brilliant. And the Nobel Peace Prize in particular has created this group of people who sponsor the bridges, who they especially, more than the science laureates, take as a personal responsibility to promote peace. And they do so by supporting such efforts, but by being sort of witnesses to abuses of power and of human rights around the world. It's really quite commendable to see the continued effort by these people who have contributed, obviously, something very specific to win the prize, but continue to do so in an ongoing way. And they inspire all of us. They've inspired me to think of ways that I can help as well, even though I'm not a, sort of a professional peace activist. I don't know, we all need to do things. As an American, I must say, I'm not very proud of my own government. So I have to do a lot within my own society to make sure that we behave better. That might be the most important thing I can do. There's so many ways that we can promote peace throughout the world.